All right, so Chain of Dementia Master. This is a personal EDH deck. It was cheaper when I put it together about a year or so ago. I'll put a link in the description. This is going to be a pre-M20 version. I'll be coming back with another version. I just got the parts for the post-M20 update. I'm going to explain a couple cards. I'm going to kind of cite prices, but not really, because while this is budget, prices have been fluctuating, so there's not a lot to say. So what is Chainer? Chainer is an older card. He's about $4 right now. If you want to play something like Scarab God, this I think is the budget-friendly version. You're looking at mono black. You're not going to see a lot of really expensive parts that you might think. Like, you're not going to see Tomb of Yawgmoth. You're not going to see, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. You're not going to see the Cabal Coffers. You're going to see some fun stuff. It's going to play a little differently than you might think. The part here about all nightmares, that's only going to affect the creatures he brings back. Now, for three black, pay 3 life, put target creature card from a graveyard into play under your control. There are two factors here. One, this says a graveyard, which means your opponent's creatures. It means your creatures. Part 2, that's important, is right here. When Chainer leaves play, remove all nightmares from the game. Depending how you stack your death triggers, you might be able to get away with, if someone goes around the board or whatever, if you can have it stacked so that if it's your opponent's creatures, you have him go out before them, and he'll, some of those things might trigger a little bit differently depending how stuff goes. But you kind of need to protect him. The other part I wanted to mention was that is not a sorcery speed ability. So this is going to kind of be a control attempt at it. It's basically just a Deathbringer control, and we'll go through that. So I'm going to leave him off the side because we're going to keep coming back. The main thing I think that separates mine is going to be a terrible package, but it's a core of what I love about this deck. Cycling. This deck is built around cycling. This whole stack right here are cards that deal with cycling. Now, Archfiend, if near, almost always you're going to actually play him or resurrect him. Let me get this to zoom in. There we go. Whenever you cycle, discard another card, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature your opponent controls. Sorry for wobbly cam. So he is going to slowly whittle down your opponent's teams. Now, this is pretty big because this hits all of your opponent's creatures. You got a 4-person table. This guy's going to keep whittling them down. I'm going to put this off to the side so we can keep coming back to that. I'm going to highlight a few bad cards, and I'm going to tell you why they're even better in this build. So, 3 mana, 0/5 Defender. That's terrible. I want to emphasize it is a zombie wall. That will come up later at a different point. Lurking Rot Beast. Most of these cycling cards, you're just playing to cycle them. You're not playing them to actually have them. If you absolutely need a body, you have it. Big part here, cycles for a single mana. Could be Unearthed. It's a zombie. So, I mean, like, if you need an extra guy on the field for some of your effects, it can be done. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. I love Twisted Abomination. Been playing for a while. They are dirt cheap now. They're like under a nickel. The fact is, Swamp Cycling. This is a basic land-heavy deck. You're going to want to hit your land drops. That's a big part of the way I built my deck, is that you hit your land drops. A 5/3 Regenerator, it's acceptable. It can block a Titan. Not like a Trampling Titan, but it can do all right. Gem Palm Polluter. Cycles for 2 black. They can lose 1 for each zombie in play. And notice it doesn't say each zombie you control. So if you happen to be running up against a counter zombie deck for whatever reason, you have a little bit of tech. It's a zombie itself. I'll come back to why he's important later. Vile Manifestation. +1/+0 for each card with cycling in your graveyard. It could be a 2 mana huge guy, and that might have a little bit of tech later. Unfortunately, it's not a zombie. Dirt cheap card. Undead Gladiator, one of my favorite cards. It's been reprinted, as you see with Masters 25. It is a slow cycle anything card, which is awesome. The first cycling, it can just do itself. Then during your upkeep, you can pay 1 in black, discard a different card, return this to your hand, presumably cycle again. If you get enough mana, you absolutely can keep cycling a ton of cards. Wasteland Scorpion, if you need a Death Toucher, but this thing is terrible, but it is cycling. Horror of Broken Lands. The main part is that it is cycles for a black. You can play it if you want to try this, little cycling beating game, but without evasion, it's not really good. It's mostly played for single black cycling. Protection from white, probably not going to matter. I don't know too many times you're really happy about playing them, but cycling and creature. Scarab Feast. Exile 3 cards from a graveyard for a single black, cycling a black. There are times where this will be good splash damage. So maybe don't have to cycle that, maybe play it. This is an okay card. I mean, 3 mana to kill a guy, not great. If you do cycling and tag on the madness, it means for 6 mana, 5 of which is colorless, you get -3/-3, draw a card, instant speed. Wandering Death. Return 2 creatures from your graveyard to your hand. It has an easy casting cost. It has cycling, so very flexible. Expunge. It's terror. It costs 1 more. It has cycling. Okay. Razaket's Right. It costs 1 more. It's a demonic tutor with cycling. Sometimes you want a demonic tutor, sometimes. So Fade from Memory. It's a worse version of Scarab's Feast. It's a single target, so most likely you're not going to need it, but it's nice to have that redundancy, cycles for a single black. So here we got Without Weakness. Target creature gains indestructible. It might come up, it might not. It's good to protect Chainer if you need to. Again, it's flexible. It's not the greatest flexibility, but it's cheap, it's an instant, it works. Absorb Vis, basic land cycling. Obviously, you're just going to get a swamp. If you need to close out the game, 7 mana, 4 life each way, not thrilled about it, but it does get a basic land, which is nice. SWAT. Hitting any creature power 2 or less. That, it is usable in the early game if like you need to nail Noble Hierarch or some other piece of utility. If you have some of the commanders that might have less power, it's there. Again, it's mostly cycling, but I try to pick cards that can still be played for their cost and not be the worst. Sorry about the jump cut. So, Swiftfoot Boots. Of the 3 pieces, the Champion's Helm, Swiftfoot Boots, and Lightning Greaves, this is the only one that's still affordable. It's around $1.75. All the others are ridiculous right now. Obviously, you want your commander. The deck is not heavily. The deck is rather curved around the commander, but it's not needed. I don't know what else to say. It's $2 and it does some work. So, God's Fire Gift, and of course, its other part, Gate to the Afterlife. So, Gate to the Afterlife, 3 colorless. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may gain a life, and then you can draw, then discard a card. All those abilities sound just fine to you. I mean, obviously, a creature you control dies. Your creatures dying are kind of relative. It just kind of depends who, what, when, where. You're gonna have a lot of creatures die. I can guarantee it. This part down here, it's gonna let you go find Godfire's Gift, whether it's in the graveyard, your hand, or your deck. And 6 or more creatures in your graveyard. With cycling creatures, that's not a problem. Then you have Godfire's Gift. Exile a creature card, bring it back as a 4/4 with haste during combat. So just out of the middle of nowhere, it comes back. There's quite a few enter the battlefield triggers on your guys, and also just bringing back these terrible, bodies that you cycled early. Just getting an extra 4/4 a turn with haste is not the worst. And the fact is, the token, nowhere on there does say the token goes away. So you could bring it back, not attack with it, and it's a zombie. And I'll bring it back up again. In case you start building a zombie army, he has some powers there. He'll be coming back up again in a second. So move those off to the side. Next package. That's some of the cute stuff. Redundancies. So I have 2 spells that are basically zombifies with a little bit of a kicker on there. 10th of Immortality is basically a 5 mana zombify. Very few times are an opponent going to be so foolish as to allow you to get a second body, but on the off chance, you know what? It's there. It's cheap enough. It's still like a quarter or something like that. Infernal Offering, really awesome, fun card. You don't have to choose the same opponent for both parts. That's very important for being political. Having somebody sack a creature and draw 2 cards, they only have 1 creature, you generally are going to pick that person. You sacking a creature, most of your creatures are disposable and are better off dead anyway. And then bring a creature back. And you can also choose an opponent that doesn't have anything in their graveyard for whatever reason. It's political. You can definitely size things up however you see fit. Let's get a couple of the other fun cards. All right, so let's get our killers. And now I'm already going to preface that you can change some of these cards. That's obviously goes without saying. Let's do some of our shooters. So I'll start off with the controversial one. Angelic Rocket. You'll notice that is a silver border card. If you need to replace it, you can replace with Meteor Golem. This is about 15 cents because obviously not everyone allows unhinged, unglued, unstable cards. 4/4 flyer for 8 mana. Destroy a non-land permanent. We aren't going to do anything to change it. There's no augmentations or anything. It's just a expensive angel that shoots a non-land permanent. Otherwise, you get Meteor Golem, who's a 7 mana 3/3. It doesn't fly, destroys a non-land permanent. The big thing, obviously, is that you're destroying a non-land permanent. Keeper of the Dead, old card. 2 mana drop, tap, 1 black tap, destroy target non-black creature. Only if they have 2 fewer creature cards in your graveyard. Well, if you're cycling away, they definitely should. And if need to, let me show you some terrible tech. If needed to, you can remove some of their creatures to make this guy trigger. If you absolutely have to, it can be done. Dark Hatchling. It used to be all right. Now it's probably really... of all the 1/8/7 that come to play killing bodies, 6 mana for a 3/3 flyer that does kill a non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. It has its uses. It's just costly. You won't be ashamed to pay the front. It's just kind of like an overpriced, underpowered Titan. It's viable. It's also only, it's I think like 11 cents or something ridiculous. If you're on a budget, this guy, if not, there are so many other ones I'll show you in the budgets that you can upgrade these to. I'm trying to stay on a budget, basically. Necrotal. Big part here is Bury. That is destroy without regeneration. Non-black, non-artifact. So it's a terror with a 2/1 body left behind. The body generally doesn't matter except for recurring. Slum Reaper. Comes into play. Everyone sacks a creature. Halftime you'll be sacking itself. We'll come back to him in one sec. Fleshbag Marauder, same thing. It comes to play. Everyone sacks someone. It is a zombie, and that matters for a few cards. Plaguecrafter, the updated, upgraded, amazing one. They can sack a creature or a planeswalker. If you hit somebody who doesn't have anything, then they have to discard a card. It simply always has a target. Obviously, if they really want to sacrifice a planeswalker other than a creature, I don't think any of us are really going to be arguing too much about that. So, talking about, well, how do we keep getting these reuses of some of these cards? Let me get, right here, our sacrifice engines. So, Disciple Grizzlebrand, he's mostly there for budget. I'm just going to flat out say it. He's there for budget. The fact is, because our Chainer can steal other bodies, perhaps you steal a couple of the white or the green ones with high toughness, paying one, sacking one of their creatures or your creatures just to keep the chain going. It's one colorless, very affordable, and gaining life back is not the worst. Viscera Seer, this one's a little expensive, like $1.60, $1.75. They go up and down. Basically, in your collection, you probably should have one regardless. Sacrificing a creature with no mana cost is why he's there. He comes down for cheap. Scry 1 isn't the worst, but the big thing is sacking for a benefit, no mana cost. Yahenni, he's starting to go up there in price. Haste is cool, 2/2. Whenever an opponent's creatures dies with our edict effects, our edict creatures are, if you're getting 2-3 creatures off of Fleshbag Marauder and such, he's going to get big quickly. The ability to sack a creature for no mana and he gains indestructible. He's just going to kind of be like a backup, like a fourth backup threat, but he's still viable. On to the Glorified. Love this guy. Menace and Indestructible. Both those are good. Unless a creature died on your control this turn, that's not going to be too much of a problem. Considering he has, you can sack a creature, scry 1. Each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Just so many abilities tacked on, and the fact that it's 3 mana is just phenomenal. 3 mana for a 4/6. You're going to be killing guys all the time. Of your own guys, their guys, whomever. And I know he only triggers if one of your guys die. I've read that. Vampiric Rites, the backup cheap version. 1 in black, sack a creature, gain 1 life, and draw 1 card. Really awesome if you have the mana, but I wouldn't be surprised many times if this, only eats a few creatures every game. We'll see. So here's our bridge. The colorless Planeswalker, the original all-artifact Planeswalker, because it has 4 abilities. Discarding cards for life, putting cards in the graveyard, 4 Chainer to bring them back. Awesome. Making a goat token. Sometimes you need bodies to sack. Sack a creature, return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. You have a couple of those. The big ones are probably bringing back Boots, bringing back either Meteor Golem or, Meteor Golem / Angelic Rocket, maybe bringing back Gate to the Afterlife. You can play around with a few things, nothing dire. Here's the card I was alluding to many times. 1 in a black, discard a creature card, draw a card. So it basically lets you cycle a card. It's basically Undead Gladiator without all the hoops. If this discarded card was a zombie, put a zombie into play tapped. So for all those cards that we were talking about that have these weird, dumb things where it's like, this cycling card happens to be a zombie. You basically cycle it for the same price, but get a zombie made out of it. And zombies matter for the polluter. If you end up with this polluter, get him back a few times to your hand, through through this. Because, wrong card. Anyway, there are a few cards that, will let you play around with bringing cards back to your hand and such. It's basically there as a backup card. It's an enchantment, so it can do some extra work. It can kind of do what the Undead Gladiator doesn't. It does some work in there. I use that phrase a lot. Key to the City. Turned on this from Commander's Quarters. It is still dirt cheap. Basically, if you have a deck with creatures in it and you need a card drawing engine, this is the card. Discard a card. We want to do that anyway. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Maybe you use that with this guy. Maybe. I don't know. And then when it untaps, pay 2 colorless, you may draw a card. So it basically gets you an extra filter every turn for 2 colorless. It's not the greatest. It's definitely not the worst, especially if you start stealing some guys' bigger stuff. All right, let's look at some hilarious cards, some more utility. Let's group this in with utility. So it might not look it. This is arguably one of the most important cards in the game. Not in the game, rather, in this deck, I should say. Whenever your opponent loses a creature, you gain 3 life. Well, we kill a lot of their creatures over and over and over again, especially those edict effects, those edict bodies, Slum Reaper, and whatnot. You can get 6 life easy per cycle. Whenever your opponent discards a card, I don't think there's anything in here that directly makes them discard, but they still might discard. They still might do stuff. This is going to keep you in the game many times. If they see this thing should be shot very often. Disciple of Bolas. A little pricier. Unfortunately, there aren't many cards that do exactly what he does, so he's important, but he's not crucial. When he enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature, you may gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. I'm going to come back again to that guy. If you have the combo sitting there, and this guy is pumped enough, you can be getting, however, like 6+ cards off that 6+ life. Not bad. And the fact he doesn't exile, he can be reused. He dies pretty easy, which is perfectly fine for us. Corpse Connoisseur. Essentially our tutor. He is going to find bodies, but on his own can do it twice. Obviously, if you bring him back and then sack him and then keep chaining, you can start finding more targets. Now, this is a card I'm very proud of. It is a bargain bin rare. Now, there's a lot of things here to unpack. I'm going to explain it as best I can. The Menace is nice. I mean, if it didn't have Menace, I probably would still play it, but I wouldn't be as happy. 1 colorless, discard a card, and then he explores. Reveal top card of your library, put that card in your hand if it's a land. I want to emphasize this deck wants to be playing 1 land a turn. You're playing basically draw-go for a long time with this deck. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter, then put that card back or put it into your graveyard. It does almost everything this deck wants. It finds lands if you need to find lands. Obviously, it's not specific. It's going to be one or the other. It's either going to find a land, it's going to get you a different card. That card, you might just want to put in the bin. If it's that Angelic Rocket, Meteor Golem, whatever, anything with a high price tag, bin it. Bin it and bring Chainer online. So this guy, while it's a filler card, I like what it can accomplish for the deck. Soul of Innistrad. Death Touch 6/6. Okay, sometimes you just need to block big guys, I guess. Return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, or you can do it 1 more time and exile him from your graveyard. I'm going to point out something silly and stupid. Here. If you bring back to your hand these cycling guys, he is a slow shot cycler. So again, the same thing. If you want to bring back Corpse Connoisseur and 2 cycling cards, if you want to bring back, Disciple of Bolas, if you want to bring back basically anything that the cost isn't too much to play, bring back the Polluter, you can definitely get some work done. It's got some stuff going on. It's not the greatest card in the world, but for a budget, I like a lot of what it does. All right, to finish this up before we start getting too long, Harvester of Souls. Another non-token dies, not just yours. Draw a card. Simple enough. Stuff dies all the time. Draw a bunch of cards. Archfiend Depravity. Fun to cheat in. At the end of each opponent's turn, they sack down 2 creatures. If they only have 2 creatures, they're not losing any. This is in excess of 2. Still 5/4 flyer, still does work. I'm very happy with where its price point is to what it accomplishes. It basically keeps people from swarming him. Portent Overlord. This guy is very cuttable, but if you're in the budget market like I am, most of your creatures, if you saw mana symbols, are double black, is very common. Was Soul Innistrad a triple black? No, he wasn't. He was just double black. So you're going to get some points out of this. I mean, it's hilarious. You got stuff like Keep of the Dead. There's 2 black symbols. Getting a bunch of harpies, okay, it's going to eat 1 each turn, but you can have an army in a can real quick, and especially if you end up losing the entire team, you have some death triggers, like off of, Harvester Souls, that can be quite powerful. Now, I'm going to try and finish up real quick. This is both backup, finisher, and just everything. I love this card so much. Comes in, all the creatures get -2/-2. It's going to clear the board of a swarm very quickly. Whenever another creature dies, you gain energy. 3 mana, 4 energy. Creature card for onto the battlefield. Tapped. It does say a graveyard. It's going. I mean, it also operates at instant speed. It's a very good backup to Chainer if Chainer's either gotten too expensive or you need to get some things going. It does a lot of stuff. I'll put it that way. It's about $1. I'll try to go through the rest of this very quickly. Faith of Devoted. In the M20 update, that's going to be much more valuable. I originally just had it because I have a lot of cycling cards, and you'll notice the whole table gets -2, you only gain 2, so it's less threatening, it's not as abusable, but it's fun. Whip of Erebos. This is one of my favorite backups ever, and there goes the box. So, sorry for the bounce again. So, all your creatures have lifelink, that's going to keep you in the game. When you use the ability, it does say as a sorcery, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it will leave the battlefield, exile it instead. So basically, there's no real way to abuse the second use of that creature. But you have a good number. You know, even if you're just bringing back terrible cards like that, just to get more bodies on the field, more lifelink on the field, that's fine. Bringing back more edict effects are definitely always welcome. You have things that can be done. That you don't mind getting back. Even getting back the Archfiend, if you have a bunch of mana and a bunch of cycling left to be done, you can still, stay in the game. It does it's interesting that it gives lifelink for a black card, but it does almost everything you want this card to do for the deck. Real quick ways of keeping mana flowing. Renegade map. It just comes in, finds a basic, not really important. Repeatedly keeps finding basics. It is a bit expensive in mana, because it's 3 a turn. Again, you want to keep laying lands every turn. This comes online, so you have some early game presence. It's both a creature and a mana producer. Same. 2 mana. This guy finds 2 basics, puts them into your hand. I have recurred this and the next card a few times just to keep putting out mana. That's the whole thing. So this one's a little expensive. Now I think it's about $2, $3. But it finds 2 basics, put them on the battlefield tapped. For a budget deck, especially when Chainer and company keep bringing this guy back, if I'm on 6 mana, I can both recur it and kick it in the same turn, whether from hand or from Chainer, and get 2 lands. It's a slow boat, but getting that extra mana out is important so you can do more activations. So that's the end of the regular cards. Real quick, I'm going to go through lands. I'm going to highlight some of the ones whose prices change. This is basically Cabal Coffers for the budget deck. We run a bunch of swamps. This is about $2. I think it's definitely worth it. This card's now $3 again. So I'm going to say you probably don't need it. The big thing here is that it's a land that sacrifices a creature. There aren't many that do it without a hefty mana cost. If you have the money or just happen to have this card, it's good. Endless Sands. If you have a creature, if it's going to die, or if you just want to get more use out of it, end of your opponent's turn right before yours, start setting it up, set up Wrath Protection. It's not perfect, but at the same time, I don't usually exile creatures I feel like I could have used one way or the other. It's usually Wrath Protection. Also, the big thing is that it does return under their owner's control, so if you take a creature off Chainer, it's going to go back to them. Possibly political. These are they're basically card filtering. They'll go off the fetch a basic, they still make mana at the time. It's to keep the deck running smoother and thinner. Then we have 4 cycling lands. Obviously, 3 produce black, 1 produces a colorless. This one's the most expensive of the bunch because it can go to anybody, and it comes in play untapped. The rest of these come to play tapped. That one does not. Crypto Agadim, old combo, and the reason we have so many terrible cycling black creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nine cheap and easy cycling creatures. This can start doing 4 or 5 mana very easy before even mid game. After that, bunch of swamps. So I'll be doing an M20 update later. This is just a idea of what I like to do with Chainer. It's the main thing here is that it's a deck that still runs 100 cards, but doesn't feel like it's running 100 cards. You want to keep doing you want to keep laying lands. That's the big thing, is you want to keep laying lands. The parts I want to kind of point out, that guy's like 55 cents. The reason that matters, the Plague Crafter is only like 60 cents. You want Plague Crafter. Slum Reaper is 8 cents. Fleshback Marauders is like 11 cents. He's of the uncommons that make everyone sack, he's the more expensive one, and he doesn't have the valid type, so that's probably my third pick unless you already have him. Yes, it's in Russian. I'm just going to point out Shriek Maul is amazing because the evoke cost here, so you can evoke it early, kill a creature, bring it back with Chainer for later use. Shadowborn Demon. He comes in, shoots a non-demon. Well, that's cool. If you have fewer than 6 creatures, you're most likely you're going to always have bodies. He's under $1, 5 mana for a 5/6. I don't mind playing it. I don't mind cheating it. It's going to keep killing some guys. He's basically the reason where Dark Hatchling gets outclassed very quickly. A cheaper version that's a little more odd. Since it's 3 mana, comes in -1/-1 counter, likely not to kill a creature, destroy a creature with a -1/-1 counter. So for 4 mana, but the nice part here is that it can self-sacrifice, meaning Chainer doesn't have to work as hard. You don't need other sacrifice engines. Some of the backups, I recently cut it. It's a bit slow, but at the same time, if you want to run a slower deck, less of a table threat, this will work. It's cheap, 30 cents. This just went up in cost again, so it got cut. The big things here are that if this thing actually does return a creature to play, it's going to exile itself. But it was a backup. It was a nice early game resurrection body/spell that was in case Chainer wasn't online. If you want a recurable Wrath, the only downside is it's probably going to take out Chainer almost every time. Higher class kill spell. I mean, mind you, the fact that it gets you life is pretty nice, but it's also like almost $4. I think it's like $3.60, some of that. It has menace. It has a lot of the facts I like. The fact that it's an artifact creature matters for Trading Post. Where are you? Real quick. Of course, I'm going to lose Trading Post. So if you spend a couple extra bucks, the fact that you can sacrifice a creature to return an artifact, so it gives you more synergies. It allows you a couple more kill spells in that whole mix. Speaking of some fun cards that may be out of your way or just worth a little more trouble, I'm going to end on this. Thrilling Encore. If there's any way you can have the mana around after an Edict effect or something like that, fantastic. Wake the Dead. Bring back a bunch of Edict effects. Mid-combat, the fact is that it sacrifices the creatures, it doesn't exile them. Right in combat, someone says they're attacking you. I bring back 2 or 3 of those Edict effects, or just all these kill spell creatures. I can nuke half their board, block the other half. It's going to be a bad trade for them, and it's an instant. But anyway, so this is the pre-M21. I will come back in a couple days with the post M20. I found a couple of neat little tricks that are probably going to change the way I play this deck for a little bit.